Hi everybody, I'm going to be starting a new series called The Catch. Obviously I put a moth trap out most nights when the weather's good, and I catch lots of different moths as time progresses because moths come out in things called flight periods. Some will be around from say May to June, some will be June to July, so as the year progresses more and more new species appear and there is a lot of them for me to cover. Now I'm still going to do a few videos where I'm going through the trap with you in video, but I found that it is quicker and better for you because I can get more close-ups if I just go through the trap, find the best things, and then, like I'm going to do in this video, show you some close-ups and a bit of information about those moths. As the year progresses, I'll have more and more moths to show you, and I'll still do videos showing you the trap as I'm actually catching things, but this is a nice way of really giving you the detailed views without too much of the sort of just watching me going through the trap. I'm going to get into that in just a moment, but first I'll let you know I've got a new Twitter account called Wild Hidden Worlds, which is for this channel. Basically you can contact me through that, you can see when I put videos up online, and you can also, if you've got a moth or something you don't know what it is, just send me a quick tweet and I can, when I get around to it, I can reply and tell you what it is, or at least what family it is. Obviously I know the UK stuff, so if you're watching this from outside the UK I can probably give you a family or a rough idea, but I may not be able to get it down to a species, as I say. I'm a UK guy. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these moths. Now, these are all from one night in the first or second week of May. I haven't actually got the exact date, but in the future I'm going to have that exact date for you. I'm going to be giving you some wing measurements. Now, these wing measurements, you should actually double them to get the actual wingspan. Basically, this is a measurement of one wing. The first moth we come to is the peppered moth. It's a very interesting moth, actually. Wingspan is 22 to 28 millimeters. They can be seen from around early May to late August, and they're pretty common around the country. So why is the peppered moth so interesting? Well, basically, this moth has allowed us to see evolution and natural selection within a generation, basically, of a human generation, to be able to see how things work. Basically, as you can see, the moth is black and white, but you do get some black ones. Now, during the Blitz in the war, around London, where everything was charred and blackened, the black moths were sitting against that and were being hidden and weren't being picked off. The white moths were standing out. So over time, the moths that were white were getting picked out of the gene pool by the birds and all the other animals that were eating the moths, but the black ones were surviving. So basically, peppered moths went from being white and black to black during the Blitz, and then slowly came back to white and black again as everything was sorted out around London. This is a case that's been proven. There's a lot of research been done into it, and as I say, it proves evolution and natural selection in one generation, which is an amazing thing. Okay, the next moth we come to is actually quite a rare moth. This is a Blair's mocha. Wingspan 12 to 15 millimeters. It's an immigrant, which means that it comes to this country by accident. So it's normally in Europe and places like that. And when it is seen, it's normally around late August. Now, the books have information on this saying that they're scarce and irregular immigrants, over 100 records since the first in 1946, resident in South and East Europe. Well, basically, I catch these moths a lot. And I start catching them much earlier in the year than August. I've already seen 3 or 4 this year. Now, the reason this is because as things progress, more moths come here. I think global warming has a little bit to do with it. We're getting new species of moth, basically. And where I live on Hayling Island, it's a good place for them to establish themselves and start growing. So whereas normally there would be immigrants for most people, for here, I catch them more commonly because I think they're actually breeding here. In the past few years, I've probably caught between 40 and 60 of them. I don't know the exact numbers, but I've caught a lot of them. And I even find them just sat on my porch by a light, something like that. Then it's not a moth you should bump into very easily, and I do again and again. And as I say, that's because I think they're breeding around here, and there's a very good, strong population. So give it a few years, and this moth will most likely be much more common throughout most of the UK. This is a pebble prominent, 17 to 24 millimeter wingspan. They have 2 generations, one between May and June and one between July and August. It's a common moth all throughout the UK, but it's just a nice moth, so I thought I'd show you a few shots of this as it's something you might well see. Okay, another common moth, the spectacle, 15 to 17 millimeters, around from mid-May to July. The reason it's called the spectacle, this is interesting, is because on its thorax it has markings which look like a pair of sunglasses. Or pair of glasses. On some moths it's much clearer than others, some it doesn't look so good, but I have seen some absolutely amazing examples that even look like they've got a bit of shine where they've got a few white hairs just within that lens. But yeah, it's a brilliant little moth, it looks very funny. Another common moth, but a nice looking moth, is the grey dagger, 17 to 22 millimeters. It's well distributed, normally one generation between May and August. Sometimes there's a second generation between September and October. One of the interesting things about the grey dagger, though, is there's actually 2 species. There's the grey dagger and the dark dagger. And this is an example of some moths that you just cannot tell apart. It's physically impossible to tell these apart on looks alone. The way they would have to be told apart, believe it or not, is they would have to be killed, dissected, and their genitalia looked at underneath a microscope, because moths have very individual shaped genitalia. Basically, it's like a lock and a key, and it's the way you can really tell what species is each species. Another quite nice moth, the sycamore, 18 to 22 millimeters, resident, local and well distributed in the UK. More common in the southeast. I catch quite a few of these. Nothing much to say about this species, but it is a nice one that you might bump into. This is a white ermine. It gets the name ermine from the ermine coat because it's got a fluffy thorax. 18 to 24 millimeters, mid-May to late July. It's a resident and it's common, so that basically means if it says resident, it means it's always here. There's another moth that's very similar to this called the buff ermine. Basically the same sort of shape, but it's yellow rather than white. As you can see, it's white with black spots, but it's also got bright yellow and black underneath its wings, so it can flash that colour to give a bit of a surprise. Also, the thing about ermine moths is, if you catch a lot of them, you'll realise this, and brown tails is another moth that does this. When you touch them, they play dead. They just fall over, curl their tail up, and just pretend to be dead, hoping that you won't do anything to them. They're a very easy moth to handle for that reason, because whenever you do touch them, rather than maybe thinking about leaving, they just act dead. Muslin moth is another one that does this. In fact, here's a picture of a muslin moth acting dead. A very common little moth to see. The flame shoulder, 12 to 15 millimeters. It's around from April to September, but peaks in around June. As I say, it's a very common moth, so you do have a habit of overlooking them. But if you look at them closely, they're actually very nice looking little moths. I've explained to you before now there is two types of moths. There is micros and macros. Micros are small ones, macros are big ones. Now, part of the macros is the hawk moths. Now, this is something that I really want to show you, because this is what really gets people's interest sparked, because these are big moths that you don't normally see. They're very common, but you don't tend to see them unless you have a moth trap or something like mine, or if you're very lucky to find one. But whenever they are found, they normally cause a big sort of stir. People don't understand what they are. It's such a huge moth. Oh, do we really get these in the UK? There's the sort of things I have said to me very regularly. And it's very sort of normal for me to say, well, yes, of course we do. But I forget that I run a moth trap, so of course I'm going to have seen these things much more likely. Had I not run a moth trap, I may never see one. In the future, once I've filmed enough of the species, I'm planning to do a video on the hawk moth, showing it's about 8 species which you're likely to see, and compare those, because they're all very nice looking moths. There is about another 10 species which range from, you might catch one if the conditions are right for migration, etc., maybe one a year if you're lucky, maybe one every couple of years, to ones which if you got one in a lifetime, you would be extremely lucky. I have caught a couple of the rarer ones, including striped hawk moth, which most likely came from North Africa. So this one is the poplar hawk moth. This is actually a very common one, and it's the one that people seem to find more, I've noticed, so maybe they don't hide quite so well. 30 to 46 millimeter wingspan. They can be seen from May to August. There's a second generation in the south between August and September. But as I say, they are a pretty common moth. As far as most people are concerned, they would say it was massive, even though there is much larger moths like the privet hawk moth, which will hopefully be showing you in future episodes. As you can see, it has 4 wings. All moths have 4 wings. Hind wings, which are the ones behind, and 4 wings. But on this moth, when it's at rest, its hind wings stick out one way, and its 4 wings stick out another way, so it gives it that very interesting shape. Now, on the hind wings, being hidden by the 4 wings, are these 2 red spots, which it flashes as a defence. But it is very funny, because they're feisty little moths, these ones. As you go to move them, quite often they'll smack you with their wing and really show off that red spot, trying to shock you. Of course, that's not really going to work for a human, but it's worth them trying. So there you go, there's some of the common moths that you can catch around mid-May. There are lots more besides, but the weather's not been great. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like as always. Remember that Twitter account is there now, so if you have anything you want me to identify, then you can do it through that. And you'll find the links to that in the description of the video. Thanks very much, I'll catch you next time. So I'm going to take you through the whole process of moth trapping from start to finish, and I'm also going to take you through the different types of traps you can use and show you that it can actually be done a lot cheaper than just going out and buying a trap. We have 2